Today we'll be installing the Factor 55 Flat Splicer. And this is a really neat piece of kit because it is low profile aluminum. It's got little rubber bumpers on either side, and it eliminates the winch loop off the end of the winch rope and requires you to actually run the synthetic rope through and then basically terminate it on the actual thimble itself. Now, the neat thing with this is that it allows for a standard D-ring shackle to fit in either direction with the pin, or if you want to use a soft shackle, it's nice wide. It's also very low profile, so it doesn't stick out real far from your bumper. So we're gonna go ahead and do a real-time installation of the winch rope onto this shackle. So let's go ahead and get started. We're gonna lay this out here. The things we're gonna need to do this install is going to be some shears. I use these electrical shears. They work fantastic. Knives do not cut synthetic rope very well. Little screwdriver. You can use a permanent marker or a paint pen, and then some standard electrical tape. And these are items that you should have in your toolbox anyways. So you don't have to go out and buy yourself a very expensive $50 FID to do this installation. Although they do want to sell those to you. So let's go ahead and get started with this. We're gonna grab our winch rope first, and we went ahead and just cut the end of it off here. And the first thing we're gonna do is going to create a taper. So the taper is gonna be needed for when we bury this winch rope back onto itself. So I'm gonna use this paint pen, and what we're gonna be doing here is going back about 1 inch and then marking 2 pairs to make our taper really nice. So we're gonna do that. Skip that pair, go down to this pair here, and then skip 1 pair and go down 1 more and do these 2 pair here. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and pull these lines out of the winch rope, and we're gonna go ahead and cut them down. So we're gonna unravel it a bit here. So the whole idea is that when you have your winch rope buried inside of the main run, you don't want a blunt end to it. So that's going to cause basically a stress point, a failure point for your rope. So in order to do that, you just want to unravel it a bit, and then just take your shears and just cut right where your paint pen mark is. And you can see electrical shears are probably one of the best ways of cutting synthetic winch rope, because it's quite a lot of very fine pairs of synthetic material here, and it's really difficult for knives to cut through. So this does a really nice clean job and makes very quick work of it. And what we're doing here is we're gonna have a really nice taper in the end. You'll see how that looks once we've got it in there. There's another one there. So there should be 2, 4, 6. So now when we pull this back together, you can see it forms a really nice taper. And we could even taper out the end just a little bit more. Just make a nice cut like that. And it'll even make it just a little bit nicer taper. And that will be plenty well and fine for doing this. So that'll be great. These electrical shears are super handy for lots of things. They're used for electric work, and so it's really handy to have those on hand. But you can see this tapers down really nice. Now you'll want to take your electrical tape, and we're going to go ahead and just wrap up the winch rope. And you want to just make sure it's nice and tight and doesn't bunch up anywhere, because if it bunches up, you're gonna have a difficult time feeding it in through the Flat Splicer link. So look just like that. Just like that. Now we're going to be feeding it in to the FlatLink. So you'll be able to push it to a certain point, and it's going to get really difficult. That's where you want to take your screwdriver and kind of just pull it on around. And you might have to push it from one end and pull it a little bit and push it pull it a little bit, and then eventually it'll pop through the other side, and you'll be able to kind of keep pulling it all the way through. Just a little more pushing here. Almost there. There we go. And what we're going to want to do is pull this back, and we're going to want to bury this thing at least 13 inches into the winch main feed here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it out and have it so the end of our taper is right about 13 inches. So it's nice and long. And then we're going to want to head and measure out down the winch rope a bit further. So maybe down another 13 inches, and we'll just mark around here because we're going to be using this for where the winch rope is going to come out in the end. So the first step is going to be to send this winch rope through the main body of the rope, and you can do that with your finger, just kind of working your way through, or use a pen and basically create a hole for it, and then you're going to just push this right through. So this is kind of a lock stitch method, so you can see that's going to pull it like that, and then what we can do is actually just keep pulling it and kind of bury it in a lot tighter into this area here, so that'll be a little bit nicer. And then what we're going to want to do is go ahead and come back through again. So let's go ahead and do the same thing and just go down about an inch or so from your last insertion point, and I'll go ahead and pull it through here. See, now we've gone through twice, and what we're going to just do is one more, but this time we're going to actually do the bury part. So we're going to run it, and you want to work this winch rope so it's open. It's a lot easier, like this rope's a new rope, so it's a lot easier to open it up, but otherwise you want to kind of open it up like this, where you just kind of push it together and just kind of work your way down the rope and get it nice and loose. And there's our mark, so that's where we're going to be trying to exit. And so we're going to be going back in through the rope, but this time, instead of going all the way through, we're actually going to go down the center of the rope. So you can see the pen is actually going down the middle of the rope. So we're going to go ahead and send this on down the center of the rope. And this is where, if your tape is getting a little bit untangled, it's going to get a little bit tricky because it's going to get caught on stuff. But once you get it started here, you'll be able to keep working it in and down the rope. So we'll see if we can do this. Now, the FID is the tool that it's supposed to make this part really a lot easier, but it really just isn't necessary. So you can see, once you get it in a ways, you can just pull and then push back like that. So push forward and then pull back, and just keep working it like a little slinky. And you just make a little bit of progress at a time, inch or so at a time, and you'll get it moved on down here. And you can see as we're going, it's getting tighter down here. So we're getting close to our mark. We might pull it out a little bit early. We just want to make sure that we get it far enough along to where it's going to be buried inside the middle when we're all done. So there we go. We're getting a little bit kinked in the middle here, so got to work it in a little bit. Keep going. We're going to go another couple inches here. Just make sure we got plenty of distance. And it's much easier on a new rope like this. As the winch ropes get used, they basically tighten up on each other. All the strands, they basically, well, it works like a Chinese fire finger trap. So essentially, as you pull out, it tightens up. And so the best thing to do is to just kind of slowly work it all free and just work it along. So there's our mark. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull out our tape end out through here, and we're gonna untape it. So you can just see, kind of work it loose. There we go. And then we can just untape this end here, and then we're gonna just hide it all inside the rope. So once again, you don't need any sort of fancy tools. I know they want to sell you their FID, which is a really neat piece of kit, but you know, $50 is a lot to pay for something that you probably won't use very frequently. You can use the same methodology and the same tools for doing winch rope splicing. So if you cut your winch rope, you don't need any fancy tools for fixing that either. But you can see this is kind of a nice little taper here we got going on. It should be really nice. Once it pulls tight, it'll actually shrink everything down. So now what we're going to want to do is just pull it inside. So we're going to work it from this end, and we're just going to be pulling it back. As we pull it back, it disappears. Look at that. So now it's inside the main winch rope body, and that's how it looks. Just like that. So the beauty of this setup is that when it sucks into the winch, it's like this, and it basically is covering all of the rope, so you're not having the rope exposed to UV. So this would be the outside, and then when you go to winch, it goes straight like this. Really cool design, very simple, and it gets rid of some of the clunkiness and bulkiness of having those extra components like the standard FlatLink has with the Factor 55. So it's one of the more compact, just really nice design. It's pretty low profile, and there you go. Just very simple, and as you load it, it's actually going to tighten in on itself and get extremely strong. So we're gonna go ahead and tighten this up in the winch, and we'll be good to go. All right, let's go ahead and winch it in, see how it looks like. And when you get close, you'll just turn it, and there it is. So that holds it nice and snug, and you can see the winch rope is not exposed, so it kind of hides it. It does add a little bit of profile to the bumper, but not a whole lot, and it's a lot easier to just grab it and use it with whatever you're going to attach to your winch. And really cool design. I've looked at this when it first launched, and I thought, you know what, that design is really great. I like the idea of making stuff as compact, light, and simple as possible, and it's crazy strong. It seems like a total win there. So we're going to go ahead and try these out. You'll want to stay tuned and see how we use it, but stay tuned for our next video, because we're going to look at the best attachment method of the winch rope to the winch drum. So this will be applicable for everyone who has a winch other than the Warn Xeon, because the Warn Xeon has by far the best integrated rope attachment design. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, post them up below. We'll catch you on the next one.